Fourth on the priority list, mergers and acquisitions. And I see this particularly at the top end of the market and the bottom end of the market. So if I look at IBM, HP, Oracle, and Microsoft, what they've spent on M&A in the last just under 4 years. Anyone want to make a guess as to what they've spent between them as an aggregate amount? 110 to 120 billion dollars, which is a lot. It's more than the GDP of the majority of countries on the planet is spent on IT M&A. Can't give precise figures because some of them are private transactions, but from what I can sort of gather from the transaction values I know, it's at least 110 billion dollars. So at the top end that's there, but it's also true at the bottom end. I'm seeing demand for M&A driven by cash flow. There are fundamentally very many healthy small businesses who don't have a strong enough cash flow position and are finding themselves potentially subject to interesting discussions from other small businesses who do have a strong cash position. So I'm going to see quite a few of the smaller businesses getting together just to aggregate their cash flow if nothing else. Because it's often difficult just to get a credit line at the moment, even if you're a fundamentally what you think is quite a healthy business. People who would have loaned to you a year ago won't loan to you now. So cash flow is going to drive acquisitions. Collaboration is another business issue. The sixth one, business responsiveness. I won't drill into all of them, just pick a few of the interesting ones. No one thinks this is going to last forever as an economic situation. Something is going to pick up at some time. So the general question is when. Let me pass on that one and come back to it. When the market does pick up, those who can get back into it fastest will be those who recover fastest and strongest. So even while cutting, organisations are still looking to understand, okay, if I did want to switch the engine on again, could I keep things running so I can switch it back on again? I think that's quite a difficult one to do when you're deciding what to cut, particularly if looking to cut IT budgets. So one thing I was hearing from one of the contract firms recently was many of the organisations that cut out the contractors about 3 months ago are now beginning to hire those same people back in again because they figured out that they cut too much. So there is an element of the contract market coming back in again. Risk management, again, maybe one that some of our Indian colleagues should have learned. I was saying to Eddie earlier on that I do feel quite close to the Satyam situation at the moment, having had a discussion with some of the Satyam executive team only last night. And for those of you who don't know, sort of Satyam's chairman has resigned this morning in the Indian market, having declared a major accountancy irregularity. To give you some indication of the scale of the irregularity, look at their cash flow and balance sheet position in September as declared in statutory accounts, and their actual cash position. Their actual cash position is 6% of the declared cash position they had in statutory accounts. That is a shortfall of billions and billions of rupee. It's Enron-esque in scale. It is absolutely huge as a potential accounting irregularity. Now that took just over 80% of the capital value of that company out overnight and took 5% of the value of the whole index off because of one company. Now, that's why compliance management and risk management are quite important. Also kind of ironic, because in September this year, Satyam were given an award as a gold medal for corporate governance excellence. I wouldn't like to be their auditors. So I think there's a lot of questions to answer for. The last one in the list of the top 8 is corporate social and environmental responsibility. This is the sort of a invest in education, work with the community. People may say, well, why on earth is this a kind of key business priority? I'll give you 2 reasons. One is, as in IT services firms, when price differentials are eroding, so everyone's on a low price, things like CSER are actually used in the marketing collateral to differentiate yourself from someone who's in the same price point as you are. So if you can buy the same service from 2 people, one is a nasty so-and-so and one is nice to people, you'll probably spend it with the nice people. So as price differentials erode in the marketplace, CSER is actually being used as a marketing tool. There's also a not very well known or understood correlation between CSER index and capital valuation. CSER high companies tend to have a higher capital valuation. So it does make actually good financial sense to have good CSER. So how about technology issues? Those of you who heard me speaking before will not be surprised that the top one is financial models. The demand for pay-as-you-go type services when there is less capital outlay up front or no capital outlay up front, ability to true up and true down based on consumption of that service is even more important than ever. So my current advice to a lot of people selling is, by all means do your old ROI based selling, but sell on time to cash positive on the investment rather than ROI if you can. That's why some of the software as a service models, despite the difficulty of getting to some of them, are actually very good, because you can be cash positive in the investment in a couple of months if you play it right. There's a traditional big ERP job. You buy a bunch of hardware on day one, a bunch of software, some consultancy. Maybe 18 months later you've implemented something, 6 months to bed it in, and typically 30 months later you're cash positive. And it's not unusual to be cash negative in a big ERP investment for 3, 5 or even 7 years. So much more interest in financial models. Offshoring and outsourcing, near shore and far shore. So some of the European destinations like Romania, Bulgaria, Estonia, some in North Africa growing up. So for example, Egypt recently won the National Outsourcing Association Awards for the ideal location for offshore outsourcing. There's been government investment in Egypt to create 2 large technology villages, some tax advantages in there, change to the education system, which produce a much greater pool of technology-aware graduates. There is an IT strategy for the country of Egypt, which is coordinated and signed up at ministerial level to drive through telecoms investment, education investments, real estate together, taxation together. It's a very, very integrated model of making IT work in the economy. And I think in the Scottish market, we really could take a lesson from looking at what Egypt have done. Understanding vendor consolidation. So I'll give an example from one of my customers in Australia. That customer, big customer, decided they had a we hate Oracle strategy. So they bought Siebel for CRM, PeopleSoft for their financial systems, and Hyperion for their corporate reporting. Because they didn't want to deal with Oracle. Oops. Equally, there are companies that didn't want to deal with IBM that have now found themselves dependent on IBM as a strategic supplier. Virtually none of these customers have got an ideal contract portfolio that gives them exactly what they wanted at any point in time. Because they bought from 5 or 6 different companies, each with the contract terms that suited that contract purchase, and they're now finding themselves that 5 or 6 of those companies are now owned by Oracle, or 5 or 6 of them are owned by IBM, or HP, or Microsoft. If they'd have known that now, they would have negotiated a very different type of contract portfolio. So here we're seeing the reintroduction of large-scale enterprise licensing agreements becoming quite popular. So anyone who used to work in sales in one of the big software vendors, Eddie, would recognize this as the comeback of some things from the past. It's very much in the resurgence as enterprise licensing. Cloud computing, it's coming there. I'll touch on that a bit more, but I'll start off with one of my definitions of cloud computing. And those of you who know my background know I started off life as a geographer in the department here. And in nature, clouds happen when you get warm, wet air meeting a cold front. It's very bumpy to go through clouds. Some people get sick when they fly through them. The same happens in the IT industry. You get warm, wet air meeting a cold front, and it's a bit uncomfortable for people. Green IT, we'll pick on that one a bit more. Collaboration is another area, Enterprise 2.0 virtualization.